The Lost Signals present
I see the gruel is ready.
a celebration of international horror and another Halloween sequel
Michael Myers is outside.
with in-depth analysis,
تو پسر خوب هستی.
adult content, adult language,
Oh my god.
and spoilers.
Сталкеру нельзя входить в комнату.
Join us.
Aren't I lucky I got a chunky bit?
Happy Halloween, you filthy animals. Welcome to the end of MOTS-O-Ween 2019.
The culmination.
5 years running now, gentlemen.
5 years
Oh,
strong.
yeah, I'll drink to that.
Cheers.
Yeah,
sure.
hey.
Salute.
5 years strong.
Hey. Hey.
So, Scott, Chris, and myself saw The Lighthouse earlier. It was fantastic. But we're going to be talking about a lesser movie right now.
Yep.
In our tradition of Halloween, we are discussing a Halloween sequel. This time, Halloween 5, Revenge of Michael Myers. I'm Jonathan Ian Manzer, here with Christopher Morgan.
The horror. The Halloween horror.
Stephen Ramosi,
This was a movie to get drunk to.
and Scott Thurlow.
Please, more Loomis.
No.
No more Loomis for you.
So, Steve-O, do you have our funny log line for this tragedy?
Uncle. Boogeyman?
Pokemon.
Man, that's what
Yep.
I am.
All right.
And just to be clear, that's a line from the film.
So, I would talk about the plot. Following the adventures in Chapter 4 of Halloween.
Which is the return, I believe, is the subtitle. Are we correct
something,
about that?
Revengeance of Michael Myers, whatever.
The Returnants.
Michael Myers is temporarily defeated by a gang of rednecks, gun-toting rednecks,
Sure.
proud NRA members, as they shoot him into a cemetery, which he falls into, and then chuck dynamite after him. But he ends up being rescued by floating down a river, and rescued by some mountain man. I think that's what his
hermit
actual
cave
name
guy?
is.
Kindly Mountain Man.
Yes.
Who keeps his body on a slab for 1 year until Mike Myers wakes up, kills him, and then goes to chase after his niece, Jamie, who may or may not be part of the Thorn cult or whatever that whole thing is.
Some connection
And,
is
there's some
present.
kind of psychic thing going on.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of fodder for generic slasher just running around doing shitty things. And they die. And then Loomis does his Loomis thing. And once again, there's a confrontation between Loomis and Michael Myers.
Fun little side fact. Danielle Harris, who plays Jamie, was in a movie that we talked to the director of earlier this year. And you can check that out. It was our interview with Andres Riveras. So I just wanted to throw a little...
Oh, nice self-promotion there.
Connecting the dots, but yeah.
And our episode is probably better than Halloween
This
5.
movie, yeah.
Yeah.
So, if you want my opinion, this is a terrible movie.
Sure.
It's fun to drink to and laugh with your friends, but even that gets tiresome after a while. And you're just kind of waiting for it to be over.
Just when you think you're out of...
There is a
and then
moment. So
they're
yes,
dragging
we're
you back in.
we're in our cups and so forth. So like happy Halloween, we're having fun with it. So we attempt to do that. Like that's sort of our tradition to do Halloween, like the cap offs. But to your point, E, even that, like there was a moment where we're like, oh, this must be over soon. We got like what 10 minutes left. We
And
paused for
half an hour.
27 minutes left. We were all like,
31 minutes
31
left.
after that.
whatever. We were all like,
31.
oh.
You only wish it was 27.
Sure. So, like, I mean, I'm looking at a probably 1. I think you guys might feel the same way. Maybe you might argue for a 0. I think that's a little harsh, but a 2 would be generous, but I'm looking at a 1 because of the nature of it and because it's like...
I will lose respect for anyone who gives us a 2.
Okay.
I will say a 0 is very hard to give in terms of plot. I'm probably going to give this a 1. It's not good in terms of plot. and there
But it
are
holds
many
together.
like large plot holes. However, there is actually a plot, so I have to give it at least a 1.
And what is that plot? Is it the mystery man walking in the back?
No,
of
that's
many
the
scenes?
nonsense that I'm talking about.
Is it the somewhat psychic connection of her, which you said many times throughout us watching this, that it would be interesting if they took this angle, but they didn't.
Yeah. No, that's
Is
true.
it the generic cannon fodder that have
No.
personalities besides you intending to hate them?
What it is the the plot of every other Halloween movie, which is Michael Myers has a one-track mind of like going towards, and like this movie saunters around it at times for sure, but he is still always like there's still always the through line of him going towards trying to kill the people that he thinks will alleviate his suffering. And I think
that's not always. That's
or even have a
only
connection to him.
established in the fourth movie.
No. I don't think so. Like that's established in the first movie. What?
He's not.
He's trying to
it's not
kill-
his sister.
No, in the
It's
first
only
movie, it's
in the
not his
second movie,
sister.
It's his sister. And then the fourth movie, they decided to create the family angle and actually have him part of this cult, which he has rage. He was just a shape going around killing people. In the
Well,
first
no.
movie.
Actually,
but,
like all,
doesn't
most
even-
of the
he has a connection with.
No, in Halloween 2, there's a bunch of stuff that they cut from the theatrical version that actually they put in like for TV that's also in the novel, because yes, I read the novel. But like for the theatrical cut and the cut you get, they cut most, if not all, of the family connection stuff in Halloween 2. So they really stocked it for Halloween 4.
So there was a family connection in Halloween 2.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but it was cut. It was on the cutting room floor.
I mean,
which
whatever.
probably
Halloween 2
should
was
have
also
stayed.
terrible, but
I'm just arguing that purely from the John Carpenter's Halloween, this has almost nothing to do with the original film.
I completely agree with that. I'm not trying to
I'm
argue.
also
that.
going to argue that this film has no purpose whatsoever because it's a stopgap narratively between the fourth movie, which did receive some acclaim for going back to Michael Myers, even though it's not a great movie, and the sixth movie, which they attempted to add this entire like kind of a mystical element
Stapled
to it.
on
But
shit,
there is no reason for this movie to exist aside from introducing the Man in Black, who they don't even do a pretty good job of even. You're like, why is this character here?
Yeah.
It's built up.
The hell's the point of this guy?
I mean, this film felt like the pacing of this film was horrible because, like, we all felt it was like 80 minutes in when it was barely an hour into it. So my whole point is, the first act they could have cleaned up. They could have dealt with the repercussions of 4, and then introduced this guy.
If we're gonna go into could-haves, we can be here.
Sorry,
all
I
night.
don't want to be here all night discussing this movie. I'm giving it a 1 because of Loomis.
All right, so I guess
Loomis's
that's fine.
plot.
Because every scene he was actually a scene worth seeing.
All right.
Yeah, but that, like, I don't know if that counts as plot or if that's character, right?
Right, it's a little bit of a difference, but here's what I'm going with. It's a bare bones. To answer your question, E, why does this movie exist? Money, dear boy. And like, at least I feel like that's the exact mindset when they made it.
Absolutely.
Right.
And their intention then failed.
Yeah, let's cash in on the franchise that like was once beloved. Like the original one is like a well-known milestone, but this one is the most bare bones plot, like almost like a parody of like what a Michael Myers / Halloween
I'm
movie
actually
would be.
offended by this film.
All right.
I'm not actively offended.
I think this is the first time I'm ever going to give out a 0 for plot.
For real?
Because
Okay.
it is there. It is just. It doesn't even need to be like there's. Aside from the occasional John Carpenter tune and the bad rendition of The Mask, even his narrative and how he acted as a monster changed in this.
No, and he took
He's
off.
gotten more and more ridiculous.
It's a fair
as the movie's
point.
gone
You see his face a couple
Yeah,
times.
He
I mean,
became emo, man. He was like
Yeah.
emo before
on.
it was
He was
emo.
crying, and the thing
He
is,
was crying.
he's the shape.
He
He's
should be,
not the
like,
Michael. He's not
implacable.
Michael
Yeah.
Myers. He's the shape, and he wasn't here.
He's not even a skid. I'm giving it a 0.
That's
too.
a fair point.
Yes,
Like,
Chris.
I think I'm just going to err on the side of like a very bare bones 1 because like, again, like it's not nonsensical. You can follow it. It's not good by any means. Don't get me wrong, but it's enough to skate by. And like, that's the best I can say about it.
I'm gonna agree with Scott on this one. I like you said, that's the biggest thing for me. It's not like a completely nonsensical plot. It didn't
Really,
there's no reason for it to happen, but it does follow a through line.
Steve-O, I don't want to even talk about this film, so yeah, let's give it a 0, definitely.
I don't feel even compelled to make the argument for why this
Yeah,
deserves a
I'm like Steve-O,
fair.
that's cool, man. I'm not going to argue
And perhaps
because
that says it best. Like, I guess the most baseline one for me, but that's it.
All right, Chris, what are the themes of
What are the
this?
strong themes of this movie?
cynical cash grab. This is a theme.
Now, that's not a theme. That's why it exists. You know, it's the difference here.
Yeah, but all over the film, you see cynical cash grab. Hey, look, it's Michael Myers. Hey, here's a Halloween theme done not as well.
Here's the mask.
Here's the
Done not
mask.
as well.
Oh, wait, here's Loomis. Here's Loomis again. Okay, here is... if there's a theme in here that's not a cynical cash grab, I don't know what it is.
The most you could say is they make an attempt at a swipe at the standard 80s horror movie theme of like sexuality is bad,
But
and
even
you
that's
get killed
mishandled.
for it. I agree,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like they make at least a swipe at it, so that's the most I
There's
can
actually
say.
something that they were attempting to do here. I'm going to bring up Star Wars for a second. But there's,
Go on.
I think Red Letter Media brings up that they kind of Star Wars backed itself into a corner, which is they have a very limited universe that they built.
Mhm.
That's you have to have all of the. They attempted to bring Halloween in number 3 out from the Michael Myers storyline and bring it to an anthology series, and then they tried to they realized they couldn't
failed,
make
so
it.
then, yeah.
So they go back to Michael Myers, except that there's only so much you can do with Michael Myers. He's just kind of a generic, and his diminishing returns of being a threat. So what they're trying to do is expand his mythos beyond just the creature in the back and give him the Thorn cult or whatever comes in the
Like
sixth
some
movie.
kind of like background motivation or something like that.
And
yeah.
that failed miserably.
Yes.
But the theme of the movie is to allow the growth of the franchise beyond where it is. Now, granted, you can take a look at more recent things, but the attempts at H2O, the new Halloween movie, of attempting to branch out beyond, or I guess the new one was Return to Form.
Right.
But, I mean, it's admirable for attempting to break new ground in a series. I just think that they should have done more in this film
Yes.
if they were attempting to do that.
I would say
All right,
hold
to your
on.
point, and maybe this is a spoiler for a few years from now, but
Future spoiler.
but I skipped this movie and I skipped 6, but I actually came back to H2O, actually saw it in theater. H2O, I don't say what you will about them, opinion wise. H2O in 2018, you felt like somebody actually gave a shit. Everything in this film, I just felt, like you said, it's a piece of connective tissue. I don't really think anybody gave a shit about this movie. Seriously.
So, I'll say, like, in talking about what you were just saying, Ian, I think that the work done for the theme that you're trying to bring out was done in 4, where they kind of tried to make it a different type of movie.
But no, this is the one where, because the introduction of the Man in Black and the
well, yeah,
symbol.
but that didn't go anywhere. But like it was the idea of like
it will go somewhere next year.
4. Oh, thank God. 4 was like
Luckily,
the actual
we can-
like trying to break from what it was, and like I think that they did such a terrible job of like because you were saying, and I think it was pretty obvious after watching 4 last year that they were trying to have Danielle Harris's character be like the next Michael Myers. Like it was going to be
But
like
they
a
got
little kid that
scared
becomes
of
a
it,
killer, but they backed off of it. And I think that would have been more interesting if she had become the killer. That would have been a good theme.
We could be here all night with coulds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean. Like that theme that you're mentioning, where they're trying to get into something new, I thought they tried to do in 4, and then they didn't follow through on it, and then they tried to do a different one again.
That's very fair.
And they fell back on brand appeal, like brand recognition, essentially.
But I think I'm going to give it a 0. That's all I have to say
Like,
about that.
Whatever themes they thought they were going for didn't come through and didn't really have an impact and didn't make any sense.
And even like the family connection between, or like the psychic connection between Jamie
Was vague at best.
Really didn't
Yeah.
mean anything aside
Exactly.
from
Right.
They did not.
That was the thing. That was the thing I was saying the whole time. Was like, this could be interesting, but
It could.
Look,
They never
if she
did.
wanted to find peace, she should have taken his Katra to Mount Selea on Vulcan. Period. End of discussion.
All right, but yeah. Either way, they didn't follow
Sure,
through
whatever
with
you
it,
say.
and I got to give it a 0 here.
Okay, Steven.
Worst Michael Myers yet.
Who are the many antagonists of this film?
The filmmakers,
The writers.
the studio.
So yeah, like if we're getting down to brass tacks here, like obviously Michael Myers is the antagonist of Halloween movies, and this is the worst Michael Myers yet.
Weakest
I think,
showing.
Not only were his actions not really consistent with Michael Myers, as you mentioned earlier,
They weren't consistent over the movie.
but he also looked like shit.
Huh.
And like the mask was not good. Like how do you not just use the original mask, or at least make? How is it hard to make an exact replica of that mask? I don't understand.
Budget.
You go to a
He
Star
spent
Trek.
a year in a hobo cave.
It's true.
Can't expect
His
him to be on
mask
top
was degraded
floor. Yeah.
after that.
Oh yeah,
But, like-
good background explanation.
He just didn't have the menace and
Yeah,
the.
But you're right. That's exactly it.
And not only that, but he just didn't have the motivation. The motivation was so like fluctuating and like just not there like it was in the original in the other movies.
I didn't feel he cared about his kills. Prior, I felt that he actually had some investment in this. He was just going through the motions here.
He's getting
See,
lazy.
that is
Amazing.
he is a perfect symbol. He's the theme for this film. He's the perfect symbol of going through the motions to get to the film. Nobody gives a shit about this film. Michael Myers doesn't give a shit about this film.
You're right. The funny thing is, like, you guys are all right. I agree with all of that, and you basically paraphrased what I would say. Like, as exemplified by his actions in the film, he's completely like not ineffective, but a pale shadow of the shape he is supposed to be, and
Nice.
he's just there for the sake of it, and is the least interesting, the least menacing iteration of Michael Myers
That he's ever been.
Yeah, exactly. So
Until
zero.
the next one.
We'll see next year.
All right. Scott, protagonist.
All right, so shall we call it Jamie? I guess, right? You tell
So,
me.
Here's the thing is, if you look back on these films, even to the fourth one, it generally involves that caretaker child dynamic.
Right, sure.
And here they had the child without the caretaker.
Does that work?
I don't... Because you really can't feel emotionally connected to Jamie. Especially since, theoretically, she has the monster side too, which could have been an interesting thing. But we get Tina for a little bit, but I don't care about Tina.
Yeah, the film wants you to think
Do you know
that, and then
do you know what's really funny?
killed anyway.
They made Jamie because she when you start off the film she's a mute. They made Jamie speak at the end of the first act. I don't know how long this film was, so
An hour
first,
and 30.
Yeah, no. What I'm saying is first act ish. I mean, I've lost all there's barely narrative in this thing, but she would have had more agency. She would have been a better protagonist if they had not let her speak until towards the end. Would have
maybe, but
because that would have
But they did.
No, because then she really would have needed a caretaker or somebody else.
There was
with
no
her.
final girl in a way. There's no hero to attach yourself to. Jamie's an interesting, or could potentially be an interesting
you're
character.
Right, exactly.
But they should have kept Rachel alive further because they actually had decent chemistry in 4. Like she's no Jamie Lee Curtis, but she did.
She could have served that role well
Yeah.
enough if they did it that way. I agree. Like, yeah. So, I mean, I don't want to like shit on the performance, but at the same time, I feel like many problems that we're going to come up with are going to be the fault of the script, of the writers.
I mean, Tina's unfortunately not a sympathetic character, really.
Exactly. Like, she's almost set up as you're like, oh, you're a slutty girl in quotes, like your classic like slasher like target, if you will. And yeah, like she sort of like swoops in to serve that like caretaker role, as you're mentioning, for like a brief slice of the film, and then gets murdered by Michael.
She does have a heroic death.
Yeah, like that's fine. Like it's okay, like in general, but it's just not enough to push it forward. And yeah, like I feel like they threw darts at a wall. Like, oh, here's all the elements we should have in a slasher/Halloween film, but let's just like haphazardly put them together in a narrative, and somehow that'll work. But no, it does not.
Yeah.
So I really can't give it credit. And like, it's not. It's like a softer blow, if you will, like a lesser of a criticism, but nevertheless, I don't think it's enough there.
I think in 4, I forget what I rated 4 because it's forgettable, but it's mediocre, and I think that at least you somewhat care about the characters from what I remember from it. Here, I didn't actually care
You're
about
right.
anyone.
It has like it has like some threadbare, some semblance of you like being investment. None of us were invested in this movie, even though like we were like, oh, it tends to be like, okay, let's be as professional and close as we can. But quickly enough, that devolved because the film, like you said, even the film didn't give a shit. So why should we, as an audience?
No, I mean,
that's my final
honestly,
thought.
I think that the character I was most invested in this movie was Jamie, but that's the other thing. Like, if I'm gonna give anything, like I'm looking at the scores right now. If I'm gonna give anything in this movie a 1, well, I'll probably give supporting a 1 just for Loomis's fucking outrageousness. But
Coming
like,
up to it.
but like, you know, anything other than that, it'll probably be Jamie.
Right,
Because
is it enough as a protagonist?
I don't know. Like, that's what I'm trying to
Yeah.
suss out right now. But like, you know,
I say
is.
Not quite, but
You heard my argument.
Yeah.
I did hear your argument. I think it's a fairly good argument. I don't know if I don't like. That's the thing. I didn't really give a shit about her in 4 either. I think I gave her probably about the same amount of shit about her in this movie.
Sure.
Can I make one last point here? Is that like in Halloween, when you see Jamie Lee Curtis running from Michael Myers the first time, you kind of know that she's going to get away. But there is still a kind of tension because they could pull a fast one. In the final scene,
not gonna kill a kid.
you know that she has plot armor.
Yeah.
And it makes the final run
It negates it.
completely purposeless.
Can I make another point?
Yeah.
In the first film, the kids are watching Lindsay and Tommy. I actually cared more about you actually cared about these 2 random kids that are basically
I did.
the reason. No, but what I'm saying is, I mean, personally, they made more of an impact than
You could get more invested in them. And
Yeah. But I
get
could
you.
watch kids be
Sure.
thrown down laundry chutes all day long. Nobody cares about your kids.
But yeah, I think you're right. Like you're right, Steve. Like
Letterkenny reference.
you
Everybody.
could like maybe like sneak in a 1, but I don't think I'm going to it in terms of this scenario.
I think I am going to agree and give this a 0. It was closer
Right.
for me.
It's
I
a
think
closer
than the rest
edge
of you guys, but
Question, but yeah.
Chris?
Oh, the skiing is 0. It was fumbled at the 1 yard line. Done.
Okay.
I don't even think you got to the 1 yard line.
I was being generous.
This movie's the
Safety.
Jets season this year.
Well, yeah,
So,
no, they're more like the Dolphins season. They're not even trying in this one.
Sure.
That's a good point. All right, I want to supporting characters. This gets a 1
Auto
simply
pass.
for
no.
the best Donald Pleasant's performance since the last Halloween. He's waving his gun around. He's barging into rooms. He's
just there everywhere.
Using
He just
Jamie
shows
as
up.
bait.
He's
He is-
literally watching a classroom for the entire day, apparently.
the only redeeming thing of this film is Donald Pleasance as Dr. Loomis. It's the only reason you'd ever watch it. And you know what? You should watch I'm sure on YouTube somewhere they might have just a compilation
Collection
of
of
his actors, and that's all you should watch.
I
Yeah.
mean, you're
I hope
absolutely-
there's a super cut of every time Donald Pleasant's waving a gun around in a
I
Halloween.
guarantee
So good.
you there is one. But like, I mean, I don't have much more to add. Like, I'm just gonna back it up. Yes, if there's some like somewhat redeeming, like worthwhile quality to this film, it's Donald Pleasant's return as Loomis. And yeah, like it might be like more like not satirical, but like in an MST kind of way, he just pops up there. But he still fits into the fucking role, and he still chews all the scenery that he's allowed to chew in the best way,
No.
and it works. So like, yeah, by default, you almost have to give that a 1.
Since it's my responsibility to talk about supporting characters, though, I must say that these are some of the most unlikable characters.
And
I've
all the other
seen
ones
in a
are
horror
terrible,
film.
yeah.
Agreed.
I wouldn't say unlikable. I would just say forgettable.
I'd say
Mostly for
unlikable.
me. I
The
didn't.
greaser guy.
Oh yeah,
whatever
that
he
guy was a dickhead. But like
Uh,
you're supposed to.
Someone
his
like
his
both of
Mark Hamill light. That guy was
That guy was
insufferable.
fine.
Yeah, he was. No, he was.
That guy was
insufferable.
fine. He was just forgettable.
You mean the cackling idiot, the blonde dude?
Yeah.
Oh, he was
Mark Hamill light. Mark Hamill light.
And the I can't believe it's not PJ Souls. Yeah. She was horrible too. Tina, was that the other chick?
Tina was like, they did nothing with her character, which is a problem. And actually, Rachel was the best probably actress here, and they killed her off
In
immediately.
the first 20 minutes.
Again,
or so.
but like that's the thing. They were all
Oh, that's some douchebag on a.
That's the guy who got killed in.
Yeah.
Hopefully he'll get killed by Michael Myers.
They were all
But anyway.
like, I didn't actively dislike any of them. I just like, I'm never gonna remember any of them.
No, you're right. Like, they're forgettable to, like, at a scale for...
But fucking Loomis, give him all the credit in the world.
I mean, those kids are grading.
He saves the score of this movie by
For
1
sure,
point for all of us, I think.
Loomis won with a bullet,
Yeah,
literally.
yeah.
Just real quickly, like, the scale forgettable to unlikable, like, they basically all lie upon that scale. Anyone who isn't Loomis.
Yeah.
Dude, I was gonna say those teenagers, quote unquote teenagers we were talking about, they were grading.
Sure.
Yeah, 40-year-old guy playing.
Playing a safe
Playing James
17-year-old.
Dean. Poor man's James Dean.
Stupid fucking glasses.
But we're gonna move on now, though, to
You got
Chris with dialogue. Good luck.
If
So-
there's no luck in head. It's the dialogue's awful, but at least Donald Pleasance did something with it. But it's not enough to give it a 1, so I'm giving it a 0.
Boom.
You're right. Like, I mean, I was going to try to, like, make some sort of, like, die upon a hill argument. Like, every word Donald Pleasance utters is not great, but better than everything else, but doesn't say much. So, yeah, 0.
Yeah, Michael Myers' dialogue in this is the best dialogue in this movie.
Wow. I like it. Nice. Very
All
nice,
right.
sir.
Mr. Ramosi, talk about the fantastic style of this film.
Or try.
All right.
See,
Third
that's
mar-
the laugh I hated
right.
from the guy.
Third Mark Hamill.
At least have an excuse of getting over a sinus infection.
Yeah, so the style in this movie, let me start out with the strong parts. There were 2
Strong
or
parts?
3 shots. Shut up, Chris. Jesus Christ. There were like 2 or 3 parts where I was like, oh, that's a good shot. The rest of it was fucking absolute trash. John Carpenter's original theme, obviously good. Just paid for and used in this movie, not a new,
Licensed
not
out.
a new.
Yeah.
But, and I'm gonna take this because I got style. The circus theme song leitmotif that they introduced for the 2 cops in the beginning and then never used again. It was like so clearly supposed to be a leitmotif for them, and then they didn't use it for the
It
rest
was
of
a
the
fucking
movie.
Police Academy
It was
theme.
so ridiculous.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was like, I mean, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was like, you know, it might as well have been like do 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 do
Yeah,
do.
exactly.
When they showed up on screen, and then they never did it again. I'm like, why? Why wouldn't you just do this every time they show up? And then they got killed, and it was like, well, I guess that's not happening again. But yeah, style's a 0 for me.
So I need to talk about this as a horror film and why people watch horror films. Perhaps you watch them to watch unpleasant people get punished. You'll be satisfied because a lot of unpleasant people get punished. But if you go there for creative kills, they're
Mediocre at best, I would say.
mediocre best. I mean, he pulls out a scythe.
Generic as hell.
But the problem is, a lot of the deaths are off screen.
They are. They don't show it.
Or the viscerality of them. So, all right.
Well, go
Sorry,
on.
to add on, Myers pulls out a scythe and, like, ostensibly cuts off the one woman's head. But you don't see that at all. You don't even see, like, the aftermath of it.
Yeah.
Like, they cheat you out of that.
But if you go back to the original Halloween, there, except for like the blood on Jamie Lee Curtis's, there's like, I mean, you do see the kills on screen.
Here's the thing, though: is these are 2 different movies. If you want to see a good movie that builds tension, you watch original Halloween. You watch shitty sequels to what Jason beat one person to death in a sleeping bag with another
Yes.
person in a sleeping
Yeah,
bag.
like over the top shit.
Yeah, I want to see like ridiculous deaths, and this doesn't even give you that.
Yeah.
They neither went, like, original or, like, interesting or, like, even over the top kills.
That is one thing I think they did pretty well in Halloween 4. There were some good deaths in Halloween 4, and they shied away from it in this movie, which was really
agreed.
disappointing.
And I think this is even before PG-13, so I really don't know where they're going with
It
this.
doesn't even matter.
Budget.
Like,
All right, the budget will do it.
cheap laziness, and I cannot reward that.
And the thing is, Greg Nicotero's studio actually did the effects for this, so
Yeah, $2 budget.
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, seriously,
They're like, we'll pay you $12 to do this movie.
As we
And he was
said-
like, sure, you'll
as
get
you said,
$12
Steve,
worth of fucking
I-
horror.
Yeah, sorry, 2 quick final thoughts on style. Yes, they totally wasted the leitmotif that had the potential with the 2 bumbling cops. And also, they obviously paid whatever they paid the royalties to use the original theme. and dropped it in, and they're like, okay, that's good enough.
They did enough to remind you of what it used to be.
Yeah, it was the biggest Halloween tease in the world, if you will.
But I'm going to say one more thing about the music. Alan Howarth did the music, and Alan Howarth did a lot of stuff. I mean, he's done sound design. He came up with the warp sound of Star Trek: The Motion Picture. Did some work on Star Wars. He worked on John Carpenter with John Carpenter on most all of his scores. Even he phoned it in on this one.
Yeah.
I mean, and I have a lot of credit for Alan Howarth. I mean, honestly, I do. I think he's great. Even he seemed to phone it in on this one.
Yeah, that seems like a cap
Also,
off.
this was the worst Michael Myers mask
Yep.
that we've seen so
As we
far.
said, yeah, we mentioned that earlier, and that certainly feeds into
Oh yeah,
the
it was
worst
terrible.
style.
Oh, and everyone seems to have forgotten that Michael Myers is a thing in this town. Because everyone's like...
Yeah, everyone's like, "Who the fuck are you? Get out of here, man!" And they're
Actually,
like,
the kids...
dude, this
the
guy's
kid-
killed many people. In
Hold on a
this
second.
town.
Hold on a second. The kid who dressed up, the annoying Luke Skywalker kid, Mark Hamill kid, he had a better... His Michael
was better
Myers
than- yeah.
costume was better than the mask that the actual Myers...
With his nice
That's-
slick back Michael Myers
Chris,
hair.
Yeah.
that is fucking hilarious, and I think it's a cap off of why we should give a style a fucking
All
0.
right, Scott, before we talk about this movie more, do you recommend Halloween 5, the resurgence of Michael Myers?
I do not. I
The
recommend.
regurgitation.
I recommend you regurgitate instead of watching this movie. Like I don't know what to say. Like we at the outset of this endeavor, we were like, let's do Halloween as our Halloween movie, right? And we'll do all the sequels.
We would never make it to the 5th one.
Yeah, like yeah. Now that
I
we
would
have,
never watch any of these if we hadn't done
God, like we are literally on air, like drinking the memories of this film away
it.
because it was like there's no reason to watch this film at all unless you're doing something like this, and even then, it's a chore, pretty much. So that is my reason for a 0. I don't know how much else to say. No, sorry, they fucked it up. It's one of the worst ones in the franchise that I have seen, and skip it.
I will say, this was not a good movie. I don't recommend you watch it. But if you're gonna watch it the same way that we watched it, which means
Drink 8 beers and be in it to win it.
drink a good amount, have a bunch of friends over, and make fun of it as much as you possibly can while
The
it's
thing
on.
is, we even got worn out by the end.
We
of
did.
it.
Like,
Yes,
it was exhausting by the
exactly.
end of it to make fun of it as much as we tried to do. But and I'm not, believe me, I'm not going to recommend this movie. Nobody watch it. You out there, don't watch this
You're
movie.
saying if you're going
If you've
to,
seen it,
yeah.
and you're watching this, and
Someone
and
is
you
probably
liked it,
torturing you.
I feel
I'm
sorry for
sorry.
you.
I'm sorry. I don't agree with you, but there is something you said. I did get like bored of it by the end, but I didn't have a terrible time watching it just because I watched it in the way that I watched it with you guys. Like, I would never sit down by myself at home and watch this fucking movie.
The
it's
only
terrible.
scenario in which to watch this movie is to do exactly what we just said to you: gather a bunch of friends, do it as a shitty Halloween, I don't know, like double feature or
Yeah.
showing a bunch of
No,
movies.
watch other movies instead.
True. Watch Halloween
Yeah.
2.
Yeah.
No,
You're gonna watch a
right.
shitty
Unless-
horror movie.
Hold on a second. Unless you're doing something like a podcast where you are going through all the Halloween movies and have to, for narrative's sake, watch this one.
There's
do not
literally
watch.
no other reason.
There's
to
no
watch
other reason to watch
Yeah.
this.
Shit.
Listen. We took the hit for you. Do not watch this movie. If you want a good movie to like have fun and drink to, watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2. That movie's a riot. You've got Dennis Hopper in there.
Or many others.
Bill
yeah.
Mosley's in it. It's a great movie.
No, you're
It's
right.
not a great movie. It's a fun movie. Definitely recommend that.
We had a lot more fun with Bad Taste this year.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Bad Taste was awesome.
No, you're right, Chris. You're right. Paraphrasing you, there is literally no reason to watch the movie unless you're doing what we're doing.
Yeah, and we took the hit for you.
So yeah.
Do not let our suffering go in vain. Do not watch this movie.
Here's to the memory of Michael Myers and
Hardest
what
of
he
zeros.
used to be.
Cheers,
And
boys.
beers.
Cheers, boys.
Michael Myers,
Ferda.
old school for the win.
Okay.
All right. So
All right, so I just want to say before we give the scores to this, I'm fairly certain this is the worst review that
It's
we've
gonna be
ever given.
Didn't I call it? Didn't I call it
I'm
halfway
fairly certain it's the
through?
worst review we've ever given. Yeah.
I said that in the other room while we were watching it.
All right. You guys want to hear
yes, I do.
Please.
the incredibly generous Scott and Steve gave this movie a 2, and Chris and I gave it a 1. No, the pragmatists here are the one giving this an overall score of a 1.5.
Yep.
We
Thanks,
did it.
Donald Pleasance, for making this not a 0.5.
If Donald Pleasance wasn't in this film, this would have gotten
A
a
straight
0.
zero, probably.
Yep.
And I believe, sorry, just cap off. It has like a 12%, like an equivalent to that on Rotten.
I think it was 13, if I
Yeah.
remember correctly.
So like, I translated to the units to 1 or whatever.
We've been attempting to go over the good, the bad part, why we gave it zeros in other films, but today, say why we gave it good.
1 Donald Pleasance.
So yeah, Donald Pleasance won, and Scott and Steve said it had a somewhat coherent of a plot.
Yeah,
That's the reason.
it did.
Good synopsis.
That's why I gave it a 1.
Good synopsis.
Yeah.
All right, well,
So
happy Halloween, everyone. I'm Jonathan Ian Manzer, and my ghoulish face will haunt your nightmares, along with Christopher Morgan,
Halloween 3 is a better movie. You should watch that instead.
Stephen Ramosi,
Absolutely run from Michael Myers if he's in Halloween 5.
and Scott Thurlow.
and I will be waving a gun in someone random's face sometime soon, a la Dr. Loomis. Good night and happy Halloween.
Editing and engineering by Christopher Morgan. Music by Christopher Morgan. Check us out on YouTube and iTunes for the shows, and on Facebook and Twitter for updates.